Our next guest is one of the first supporters of Never Alone. He actually did an asana, yoga asana with Deepak, and we actually posted it on social media. He's an award-winning comedian, actor, and mental health advocate. In 2010, he was the recipient of the British Comedy Award for Outstanding Contribution to Comedy, and also the Show West Award for Comedy Star of the Year in 2011. He is a passionate activist for mental health and drug rehabilitation, and is kind of wonderful to watch. Please welcome someone who truly needs no introduction, Russell Brand.
Hello, Russell Brand here for the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation and the Chopra Foundation's Never Alone Suicide Prevention campaign. I'm sure you've heard this many times over the course of this summit, but the mission statement, just hear it said in an English accent. Has anyone said it in an English accent yet? Our goal is to help people know that they are not alone, to give them hope, inspiration and a sense of community, along with specific practices that they can use to help elevate their mood. Well, the elevation of mood is perhaps not something you want to come to me for. I mean, not that I'm suggesting I'm depressing, far from it. It's that in the elevation and escalation of states, I've often been inclined to overreach, like I'm in recovery from addiction. And I suppose that this summit, whilst it's clear that the intention is to raise money for some very worthwhile causes, notably suicide prevention, and I'm aware that suicide has become sadly preeminent and has increased over the course of this quarantining lockdown time. I myself am in recovery, and I reckon some of the techniques and things I've learned could, if not elevate your mood, certainly stabilise it. Because I don't want to get into one of the things I'm interested in, and I read this again recently in Eddie Stern's book, One Simple Thing, about the science of yoga, forward by Deepak Chopra. So what can go wrong there? He said that yoga is about moderation in food, drink and mood. And I guess the reason that we're talking about elevation of mood is because a lot of people might be down, out, or depressed. I think I got young children, so during this lockdown, plus I'm not poor. So during this lockdown, mine has been a more subtle type of madness. The over-reliance on my wife, given that it's me, her, and then some children and some dogs and cats, like we're the only sort of adult humans, and codependency is an easy enough thing to fall into. The people that I guess I have most empathy for are people that live with people they don't get on with or are afraid of or don't get on well with, or people that are alone who don't want to be alone. It's a good thing to have a family. I've spent a lot of time on my own and I'm very grateful to have a family. I suppose what we want, given that there are so many variables in a situation like this, people could be on their own and be happy to be on their own, people could be in groups and feel trapped in groups. I suppose we want to start to reach for some universals. And what is the point of the spiritual life if it isn't pragmatic, applicable and as useful, if not to everybody, then certainly as many people as possible, and I would make a strong case for everybody. Now, I'm just going to get this bit of ink off the desk, which sort of, that's the kind of things that are bothering me now. I could spend today and tomorrow on that bit of desk ink. Oh, well, life's falling apart. I suppose what we're looking for are some spiritual techniques. In the 12-step program that I use and was taught, here are some of the principles that are vital. 1, acceptance, admitting that you've got a problem and that you're powerless over usually your addiction, but in this situation we're powerless over the government edicts of the lockdown. 2, coming to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity, that one day a different type of life will return. I don't hope things will go back to normal, because I think normal was pretty compromised, cataclysmic and on a doomed teleology towards apocalypse anyway. So I'd like to revise the way that the world is organised. 3, we made a decision to turn our life and our will over to the care of God as we understood God. This, for me, means that there is a consciousness beyond my individual identity and beyond yours, and perhaps between all of us, that we can attune to, that we can align with, that we can be held by in times of personal fear and personal limitation, personal lack and loss, that there is something that can hold us, that's bigger than us. It can be an understanding of God as prescribed theologically, or it can be a different type of conception of divinity, or it can be the shared power of a group. It can be whatever you want, as long as it's benevolent and loving and isn't you, that you aren't the deity of your own domain, that you aren't the God of yourself. Nothing wrong with sovereignty, nothing wrong with that personal authority, but without anywhere to turn, who are we? Without relationship, who are we? And we're approaching this from the perspective of having a problem. So if we've got a problem, the last thing you want is to be solely and uniquely in charge at the zenith of all power as some sort of king tyrant of your own misery. You are wise to surrender at this point. Addiction and crisis begins with this surrender. There's a problem. It's possible for the problem to change. I can't change it on my own. I'm going to need help. That's the first 3 steps. Then there's the inventorying process. The inventorying process is to give us an understanding of why we are the way we are and what behaviours we have, what habits we have in order to, well, and what strategies we've evolved in order to hold our shit together. Step 5 is sharing it with somebody else. The removal of shame, I think, is vital for our survival. After that, after we've undertaken the inventory process, steps 6 and 7, became willing to let go of our defects of character, the defects of character that have been identified through inventorying and sharing. And step 7, humbly asking for these defects to be removed. The defects of character include things like pride, self-pity, self-centeredness, jealousy, envy, greed, gluttony, impatience, intolerance, sloth, lust, dishonesty, arrogance, self-righteousness. These are strategies that I've employed, that most people employ in order to hold life together. Pride, caring what other people think about you. Self-pity, a kind of wallowing in personal misery. Self-centeredness, unable to escape the fragile confines of my own ego. Becoming willing to change and let go of these defects of character is significant. Once you've done that, you're through with yourself. You're through with analysing yourself. You can do this over a lifetime. You'll probably have to. You can do it over the course of a day. That's how they used to do it when this program was conceived of 8 years ago. And after that, you make a list of people that have been damaged as a result of your behaviour. You become willing to make amends to them. And then the next step, step 9, is you make amends to those people unless making amends would make the situation worse. That way you don't need to go through life looking over your shoulder, feeling like you've done something wrong that ain't been dealt with. Steps 10, 11 and 12 of the 12-step process are commonly known as the maintenance steps. Step 10, for me, means stay aware. You can repeat on a daily basis the inventory process described in step 4, which is a 4-column technique, which if you want to know more about, I've done videos on it and it's on my website if you want it in more detail. And of course, there are lots of recognised 12-step organisations that created this system. So obviously I'm perfectly positioned to describe it to you. Many, many online meetings where you can learn more about these things as well. Step 10, stay aware. What am I thinking about now? What am I feeling in my body? Am I feeling hollow in the heart or tense in the stomach? Can I attune to this? Can I respond, I don't want to say rationally, but I want to say congruently to these feelings so that I'm not cut off from my own emotions, disembodied, living entirely in the head. So if I feel jealous or insecure or inadequate or fearful, I recognise it and I'm willing to undertake a process of analysis, usually with another person, because I'm within the fog of my own misunderstanding and I need a Sherpa to help me up through that fog. Step 11 is we sought through prayer and meditation to increase our conscious contact with God as we understood God, praying only for his knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. The only reason we want to experience the divine is so that we can become useful. Meditation, I imagine, plays a massive part in this weekend, right? Surely it's a huge part of it. I was fortunate enough to be taught transcendental meditation by Bobby Roth. I know a good few Vipassana techniques, and meditation, a daily part of my life, is best understood, I feel, as being willing to move into awareness as opposed to the contents of awareness. In this moment, for example, I'm aware that I'm talking to you. I'm aware that we're approaching the end of this video. I'm aware of my body, feeling of having stuff sort of in my mouth, the heat of my body, the slight clamminess of my hands. Then I'm aware of my force. Oh, I should have mentioned clammy hands. I don't mean clammy in a wet way. They're sort of quite, actually, I could happily handle a handshake now, were it not so bloody lethal to all of us. So you learn to observe the contents of awareness and not resist, but witness identification. I may remember, like, you know, if I sit still and do nothing, I start thinking about some bad thing that happened in the past, start worrying about some negative thing that might happen in the future, and I feel I forgive myself for these habits and patterns, and I continue to observe. One way of anchoring that observation is through the repetition of a mantra, or the observation of the breath, or feeling the energy inside the hands. There's loads and loads of techniques. Some of the people that have taught me, Muji, only online, Eckhart Tolle, mostly through his books, where I've had the privilege, some conversations, and of course Deepak Chopra himself. Me and Deepak done an amazing meditation he taught me, and it's on YouTube now. You should check that out. He taught me through some amazing processes, and I went that day. I was out, the very thing I was looking for in drugs and alcohol, the very kind of thing that will elevate your mood. Oh, I found it there in that meditation with Deepak. It was exceptional. Russell Brand, Deepak Chopra, check that out on YouTube. 12th step is, having done all this stuff, is you become of service to other people. I try to get over the ingrained idea that my life is about my personal fulfillment, this sort of biologically or biochemically underwritten notion that my survival and my needs are what I'm here to fulfill, whether that is through food or sexual congress or through status and the ascent of imagined hierarchies. To be willing to let go of those things and again return to the awareness and to acknowledge the oneness, the deep, deep oneness, the unified field from which all matter, phenomena and non-phenomena emerge. To recognise that my consciousness is that, and that I can acknowledge and honour this oneness through service, through love. Love being, in my opinion, a kind of magnetic gravity pulling us all back together where we belong in union. 12 minutes, 18 seconds. Let me just restate the mission statement. Our goal is to help people know they're not alone. We're not alone. To give them hope. Have a bit of hope. Inspiration. You and a sense of community. We're in this together, as they say. Along with specific practices, done that they can use to help elevate their mood. I hope you feel that I have fulfilled the brief presented to me by Deepak Chopra and the other people that created this thing. Cheers.
Thank you, Russell, for your, once again, lightness of being, your always a sense of humor, and your undying support for this movement. Once again, to learn more about his work, please go check out russellbrand.com.